Stepping up to the couch, it's Brian, who led the league last season in cracked screens. But with his new athletic case, it looks like that won't be the case. Touchdown, Brian!
So first things first, I decided to pull an all-nighter to write this script, so if you could please do me a favor and like the video, I would really appreciate it. But then again, Philip DeFranco has found a lot of success from threatening to throat punch his audience if they don't like the video. So like the video or I'll punch you in the throat. With that out of the way, I want to talk about the people that actually got throat punched, and that would be the entirety of the Houston Rockets roster. I cannot express just how disappointed I am with the Houston Rockets after this series. I mean, really, Houston? The guy that most people now consider the best player in the league, I would say, is Giannis. One of the two best players in the world at the very least, gets injured and you still don't at least win on your home court. Now, I am giving Houston a lot of shit, but I'm really not that mad. I mean, I am mad, but they didn't choke as much as they just got outplayed. What probably annoys me the most is how unbeatable this Golden State Warriors roster is. That's the saddest thing for me. But what I had going through my head for a while now, and especially in this series, is what the hell do the Houston Rockets do? I mean, this was it, right? This was a worse roster than they had last year, especially on the defensive end. The loss of Trevor Ariza and Luka Mbamute ruined this team's wing depth and defensive capability, to the point where J.R. Smith minus the Hennessy was getting minutes in the fourth quarter of Game 6. They dropped from 6th to 17th in defense, and it's only going to get worse. And when you look at the Rockets' cap situation for the future, needless to say, the situation is dire. So I want to look over this team and look at the roster and see just how truly fucked they are for the future.
Rebound. Save. Absolutely incredibly. With the acrobatic alley-oop.
Now, I did just say that the Houston Rockets were fucked and basically implied that they were doomed to failure for the foreseeable future, but before we go in depth, I will fight my naturally pessimistic attitude and viewpoint and look at this optimistically, but not unreasonably optimistically, because I actually think there is a chance that things really are not as bleak as they seem. In the likely event that Kevin Durant leaves the Golden State Warriors, I think the Houston Rockets are probably the best team in the West. I think the KD-less Warriors or the Nuggets with Jamal Murray having another year under his belt also have a good shot at being the best teams in the West, but I would put my money on the Rockets being the best team in the Western Conference, so I think they could easily make it out of the West to make the finals in 2020. Now, could they beat the Giannis Bucks or the potential KD Kyrie Knicks? I would bet against it, but I wouldn't say that it's anywhere near impossible. So as long as KD leaves the Warriors, the Rockets' championship hopes are not dead. But there is no way, and I would like to end all discussion of the possibility right now. There is no way that this roster is going to beat the Golden State Warriors as they are right now. The Rockets were lucky enough to face a very injured team this time. Durant missed Game 6 in Houston and the fourth quarter of Game 5. Curry having his finger injury that pretty much turned the greatest shooter of all time into Chuck Hayes from the three-point line, and, well, pretty much Chuck Hayes from everywhere. You were not going to get a better chance than this to beat them in a 7-game series. So if you think the Rockets could have any kind of success by just running it back with the same rosters next year, I hate to tell you this, but you're wrong, fam. So now let's look at the pessimistic point of view, or as I like to call it, reality. Let's look at Houston's salary situation. The Rockets next year are paying Clint Capella $16 million a year. Now, going into the season, a lot of people viewed that contract as a steal, including myself, because Capella's importance to this team's success was pretty much on par with Chris Paul's. But based on how he played in the Warriors series, oh boy. During the regular season, Clint Capella had the best year of his career. He averaged 16.6 points, 1.5 blocks, and nearly 13 rebounds, and he did that shooting 65% from the field. The perfect run, jump, and dunk center. He was there to clean up the mess on the offensive boards and catch a few lobs from CP3 and Harden. That was his role. So how did that translate versus the Golden State Warriors? Well, for one thing, he averaged 5 less minutes per game because he was consistently getting played off of the floor by the Golden State Warriors' elite perimeter play and small ball, but maybe him having played 28 minutes a game should be viewed as an accomplishment because considering how poorly he played in those minutes, he probably should have been playing 0. His scoring average was cut in half while shooting 10% worse and grabbing 3 less rebounds a game, and being a defensive liability versus the Warriors small ball. I asked this question on Twitter, and I really do want an answer. What makes Clint Capella a better player than Kevon Looney? This isn't just a reaction to Looney thoroughly outplaying Capella, because he did do that. It's more of, what about Clint's skill set is any more superior than Kevon Looney's skill set? He's a center that can protect the rim, rebound the ball, and finish some lobs. The difference is, Capella is making $16 million a year, and Looney will probably be getting about half that in the offseason. I saw a Funky Diabetic make a great point about Willie Cauley-Stein in a similar regard. He said something along the lines of, you can give Dwayne Dedmon $8 million a year to do exactly what Willie Cauley-Stein can do, even though Willie is probably going to make $12 to $16 million a year. Now don't get me wrong, a player like Clint Capella is very useful, but he's not worth that kind of money because there are a lot of players in the league who have his skill set, and they'd be happy to do Capella's job for cheaper. Oh, and by the way, Clint Capella will be making this money up until 2023, so at least that's the positive. Next we got Eric Gordon, who honestly is a little overpaid, but he stepped up big in the Warrior series after being kind of bad all season, so I won't be giving him any grief. Next, we have the big white whale, or the big wine whale, because Chris Paul complains a lot. Let's just look at the salary. Chris Paul next year will be 34, and he will be making 38 gosh darn freaking $1 million. I've been told that I curse too much in my video, so I had to throw in the gosh darn there. So that's obviously bad. Let's look at what he will be making in 2022 when he will be 37 years old. $44 fucking million. Are you shitting me? Well, that censorship shit lasted long, but when are we gonna stop praising Daryl Morey as a great GM? I mean, I know he's funny on Twitter, but from what I remember, CP3 said publicly that he was looking for max money. Then Morey just gave it to him. He didn't even wait to see what the market deemed Chris Paul to be worth, and I know he didn't wait to see, because I know for a fact no other team was giving CP3 going into his late 30s $40+ million a year, because that's just a stupid idea. Not even the New York Knicks, yes, not even the Knicks would make a decision that bad. That's saying a lot. So that went for way too long, but salary-wise, the Houston Rockets are fricked. They're fucking fricked. As far as improving this roster or escaping the salary, I mean, there are ways to get out of Chris Paul's contract, but not ways to do it while improving the roster. Best case, you trade for a really bad contract and send over a bunch of first-round picks, which you shouldn't do with a very uncertain future. So they're stuck with CP3. I suppose they could move Clint Capella for someone like Dwayne Dedmon to free up some cap space while still maintaining their center ability. That would give them some extra cap space. Iman Shumpert's contract of $11 million a year is expiring, so that's like $20-something million to play with in free agency. And you could use that on some defensive wings, preferably one who can start, so that they can bring back the Eric Gordon off of the bench thing that worked so well for them last year. Harrison Barnes, Trevor Ariza, Wilson Chandler, Danny Green, and Thabo Sefolosha are all good 3-and-D wings. Might take a pass on Harrison Barnes because he'll probably be the most expensive player here, and for whatever reason, sometimes he thinks he's Kobe. So let's say they bring back Trevor Ariza for like $7 million a year. Next player that I would want to add is a point guard off of the bench who can create some shots. Harden needs some help creating, and Chris Paul isn't getting any younger, just like he isn't getting any cheaper. I think Rondo could work. If not him, there is TJ McConnell. Derrick Rose, though he may be too expensive. And hell, maybe Goran Dragic takes a cheaper contract and a six-man role for the chance at a title. So that's the situation and some sort of maybe kind of suggestions to help improve the roster. But all of this really hinges upon Kevin Durant leaving the Golden State Warriors. So now I want to talk about what happens in the event that Kevin Durant doesn't leave, and or the Rockets don't make the 2020 NBA Finals. James Harden has 2 years left on his contract. If they don't win the championship in 2020, the situation would be Chris Paul is closer to 40 than he is 30, and the team is locked into the salary situation that they have with no real way of getting out. At that point, James Harden is 31 years old, and all he has to speak for his legacy is one MVP award. Harden is good enough to be the best player on a championship team. He will abandon ship if he has to, unless Harden is all about money and he just wants the supermax for his final big contract of the year, which he would only get in Houston. I suppose that's a possibility. But my point is, in all likelihood, James Harden would either ask for a trade or the Rockets would be forced to trade him because he's not going to come back to that roster. At that point, what they get in return really depends on the scope of the league. The last player at James Harden's talent level to be traded was Kawhi Leonard, but that's really not a great example, being that he was injured for a year, and he said that he only wanted to go to like 5 teams, and that plummeted his value. Looking at Anthony Davis, the Celtics and Lakers seemed completely willing to throw away their entire young core for Davis. But Anthony Davis is 25 years old, Harden would be 31, so that hurts his value, and he would likely also list 5 or so teams that he wants to go to, which would tank his value. So at that point, I suppose you'd be looking for a team that is both in the position to contend and has a lot of young assets. Outside of the Celtics and Lakers, I can't think of any team with that scenario, but a team like that could pop up in the next 2 years. But as of now, it's hard to predict. Hopefully they would get back a star player and a few draft assets, but really, I don't know, man. That's the end of this video. Please be sure to like and subscribe for more NBA content like this, and cue the outro music.